Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another gameplay impressions video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Toukiden Kiwami for the PlayStation 4. This title was sent to me by Tecmo Koei so that I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. And let me just tell you guys that Toukiden has kind of a special place in my heart because I've already played the crap out of Toukiden previously. I mean, the original version of Toukiden was a PlayStation Vita exclusive, and in my opinion, it was an awesome title, like to the point where I think I've spent like 50 hours with the game or something along those lines. And to be honest, the only reason I didn't play anymore is because I'm usually pretty busy, as you guys are aware, and I have to play tons and tons of games. But I gotta tell you guys, Toukiden on the PlayStation Vita really held my attention for quite a bit of time, particularly if you're playing in multiplayer with friends, because the game does have co-op multiplayer, and that just takes it to a whole nother level in my opinion, because playing with NPCs is never as satisfying as getting together with a group of 3 more friends and just duking out against some of the demons in Toukiden. But let's get back to the basics here. So in this video, I plan on talking about what is Toukiden, the base game, for those of you who never played Toukiden, and then I will go a little bit deeper into some of the changes that you can expect to see in Toukiden Kiwami. So Toukiden is essentially a game which is, it's almost impossible to talk about Toukiden without mentioning Monster Hunter, because Toukiden is very much a game that draws a lot of inspiration from Monster Hunter. Like, I don't think that is going to be any news for anyone that is watching this footage. As a matter of fact, before doing this video, like, I published a screenshot on Twitter as I was playing the game to get ready to tell my opinion on how I felt about the game. I published a photo there, and people were like, "Oh man, what's this? Is this Monster Hunter?" So I mean, it's kind of hard not to talk about Monster Hunter when you're talking about Toukiden Kiwami. So if we take a look at, for those of you that know what Monster Hunter is all about, the gameplay in Toukiden is quite a bit similar. The difference is, in my personal opinion, is that Toukiden feels a lot more arcadey. Like, for instance, whereas Monster Hunter almost feels like it's trying to go for this simulation type of deal, like you're actually trying to hunt a monster in the wilderness and all that. Toukiden is a lot more, there's a demon, go fight the demon. You don't have to worry about bringing food. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. There's still other concerns that you need to worry yourself with, like equipping the proper tools to get the job done. Obviously, certain demons will require you to use certain weapons. I mean, they don't require you to use any specific weapons, but you will have more advantages if you bring the right tool for the job. And naturally, there's also a couple of elemental attributes involved. So, like, for instance, certain monsters might be strong against fire, but they might be weak against water or something like that. And all monsters have these kinds of elemental weaknesses or strengths. And in the previous Toukiden, you would actually have to kind of experiment with it and figure it out. In Toukiden Kiwami, once you've encountered a monster, like let's say you fought against a monster but you didn't really win, or even if you do win, there is a character in Toukiden Kiwami which was already present in the previous Toukiden, and they will tell you the elemental attunement of each of the bosses, so that just in case if you lose a particular fight, you will be able to, research information and prepare yourself better next time around. Having said that, the gameplay cycle is very much that gameplay cycle of you go out, you fight some demons, you gather materials from their corpses, and after you gather the materials, you then craft new weapons from those materials, and you go out and you fight bigger demons. Now, where Toukiden differs from Monster Hunter, in my opinion, beyond the fact that it feels a lot more arcadey with the controls and all that, is that instead of actually fighting monsters, you're fighting demons, so there's obviously a bit of a difference there. I know that a lot of people will probably not make that distinction, but there is a big distinction just there, because, I mean, demons are, I guess some people will say, oh, demons are the same thing as monsters. Not so much. I mean, demons are like an entirely different mythos around them and all that. And in this specific case, for those of you that are familiar with Japanese culture or stuff like that, these will be Oni demons, which I think Oni is actually the word for demon. I honestly don't know. But regardless of that, one of the things that I really enjoy about Toukiden is its storyline. Now, I know that a lot of people will not care for the storyline all that much, and it is not the best storyline in the world, but I like the fact that it seems that they've actually put quite a bit of effort developing the storyline in the game. Like, just to give you guys a basic idea, I'm not going to go too in-depth with the story, but to give you guys a basic idea, the story of Toukiden is that essentially there are these demons who appeared in the world during this event called the Awakening, if I remember correctly. And the appearance of these demons in the world caused all kinds of chaos and even paradoxes in the timeline of the world. So essentially, when you're battling these monsters, you're going to different ages of the world. You're not actually in the same timeline all the time. And this is interesting because it's all because of the appearance of these monsters, and they're trying to basically wipe out the entire human race. So you're on the last line of the fence. You are the slayers of Onis, and you're very much the last line because most of the other villages have already fallen. And yeah, there's a nice, rich story to the game. At least I thought it was pretty cool as I was playing through the game, and I quite enjoyed it. And things aren't always as they seem too. There's a bit of plot going on in there as well, which kind of keeps it interesting. But yeah, the basic mechanic is about hunting the monsters, gathering materials, crafting weapons and armor, and then going back and hunting bigger monsters. But as you are doing this, there is a storyline happening throughout the game. Beyond that, there's also multiplayer modes where you can play with your friends and team up with up to 4 players online and just get together to hunt harder monsters. Because the single-player monsters, if I'm to be completely honest, they've been pretty easy. I mean, they were pretty easy when I was playing the game on the VITA, and now that I've been playing it on the PS4, because I mean, I'm always personally more comfortable playing these kinds of games on the big screen with a proper controller than I am on handhelds. And now playing it on with the DualShock 4, I just feel the game is even easier, and that could just be due to the fact that maybe I haven't really reached the harder level monsters, because I'm only in chapter 5 or 6, which speaking of which, all the content, all the new stuff really for Kiwami only comes in chapter 8, I believe. So I haven't even seen like the newer monsters and stuff like that. So maybe I'm just missing it out there. And that's the reason why I'm finding it so easy. But then again, if you really want to play around with the difficulty, you can also just not bring as many NPCs, because I always come to missions like chock full of NPCs, and they do make things quite a bit easier. Now, you have multiple types of weapons, and depending on the type of weapon that you choose, that is going to very much dictate your playstyle. And one of the things that Kiwami does is it actually adds 3 new types of weapons. So the game already had weapons like, they have this longsword type weapon, they have a bow, they have a spear, these punching gloves that you can use, which I never really liked the punching gloves all that much. As a matter of fact, the footage you guys are going to be watching is probably going to be, it's not going to showcase all the weapons, because I would have to like practice with all the weapons. That would just be insane. But another really cool weapon that they have is the sickle. And that allows you to do all kinds of crazy aerial combos, which is just really, really cool. I really enjoyed the sickle. It is one of my favorite weapons. But something that I found also very interesting is the fact that when I play Monster Hunter, I tend to like stay away from ranged weapons. I don't really like them all that much. And in this game, I actually enjoy them quite a bit. Like, one of the new weapons is a rifle. That was not present in the original Toukiden, and I've just been crafting all kinds of rifles with different elemental attributes and whatnot, so that I have the counter attribute for all the bosses that I come up against. And I've just really been enjoying playing with rifles. It's a lot of fun. It's a completely different playstyle than if you're playing melee, because you have to stay back, you have to channel, like, you have to really focus on getting your hits in without getting hit by the boss yourself. And if you're playing with the rifle, you also have to pick different types of ammo for different types of situations. So it's just very, very satisfying. Now, beyond the weapons themselves, there also exists this another mechanic in Toukiden, which is the mitamas. Now, as you play through the game, you will actually save these spirits which are called mitamas. Now, these spirits, in terms of lore, are essentially people who were slain by demons, and they were warriors, so they were trying to fight the demons. And as the demons killed them, they absorbed their souls. So when you kill these demons, you eventually free these souls, and you earn these Mitama spirits who will actually go to you, and they will say, oh, use me in your battle against the Oni. So, and the way that they function is, I know that I'm going to simplify things quite a bit here, but they function just like gems. You know, in video games where you have sockets on your weapons and stuff, and you can put gems in them, that's the same way that these spirits work. So, depending on the gems that you equip on your weapons, you're going to have access to different skill sets. So, for instance, when you see me play with ranged weapons in this video, you will notice that I'm a lot of times I'm casting spells. So that is because I am using a spell casting Mitama. There's different Mitamas. There's Mitamas that will buff your attack. There's Mitamas that will buff your attack speed. So there's all these different things, and you get access to these different abilities while you are in game. And those kind of work like your consumables, with the exception that you don't really have to purchase them at a shop. They get automatically refilled for each mission. And different Mitamas obviously give you different consumables. So this is particularly useful if you are playing with friends, so that you guys can like combine together and make a specific composition to fight monsters and boost your effectiveness naturally. And you know, pick skills that complement each other, or just pick skills that go for the highest possible damage. There's also support skills, although I haven't really played a lot with that, because a lot of the time that I've played Toukiden has been in single player. Now, beyond the materials that you get from monsters, there's also materials hiding throughout the scenarios, which you will have to, you know, every now and then you will have to go and collect materials. I mean, these games are repetitive and grindy. It is just, I mean, they're not too grindy. I mean, Toukiden, to be honest, is not that grindy unless you're kind of like me, who is obsessed, and I feel like, oh, I've been playing around with rifles, and I kind of feel like I want to make one rifle for each element. Like, you usually don't have to do those things unless you're crazy like me. And yeah, if you want to like get one rifle for every element, you will have to go and grind a couple of bosses to get all the materials required. But that is something that is kind of expected. And a new feature that was not present in the previous Toukiden, while we're talking about grinding, is when you go out on a mission, you can actually select one of the NPCs to go out on a mission at the same time as you, and that NPC will get materials from that mission, which will make things less grindy. To also help with that, the game eventually will give you a pet, which is, I think, is it called Tenku? I don't remember the exact name of the pet, but there's this like double-tailed fox that you get, and you can send it out on material gathering. And in Kiwami, you can even assign Mitama, one of those spirits, to help her out in getting materials for you. So they're trying to add stuff that will enable you to get materials faster, so that you have to grind the least amount possible. Which is, again, one of those things, like I said, the game feels a lot more arcadey than Monster Hunter. They're doing all this stuff to kind of, all these features to kind of make it easier for you to just get in and just get into fights against the demons. Couple of other new things. I mean, obviously you have new weapon types, like I've mentioned. You have the rifle. For those of you that have already played Toukiden, I will be telling you the exact new weapons, which is the rifle that I really enjoy. The rifle is just friggin' awesome. Very different from playing a bow. Trust me on that. Very different mechanics. But you still will want to use like a spirit type Mitama because you want to keep your distance. Then there's also the Najinata, and that I thought was really cool, because I thought it was just going to be something very similar to a spear, which, let's face it, that's what a Najinata is. It's a long pole with a sword at the end. But what they did with the Najinata is they added quite an interesting mechanic where the Najinata just hits super fast. It's a weapon that you want to hit your enemies and not get hit. So I'm using right now with that weapon agility Mitamas, which kind of like boost my attack speed. So I should probably be showing you guys now in the background a fight where I was using the Najinata. It just hits at ridiculous speeds, and it's a lot of fun to use. Another new weapon that they've added is the, I'm not actually sure what the name of it is. It's like this two-handed mace. that they didn't have previously. Not a big fan of that because kind of like the gloves, which are the heavier weapons in Toukiden, they require a lot more precision, which is interesting because usually you think, you know, the weapons that are fast will require you to be more precise in your hits and stuff like that, but with Toukiden it's the other way around. Fast weapons, you're kind of just free to spam like an animal, but when you're talking about the heavier weapons, you have to really make each hit count. So the mechanic around the two-handed mace is that you want to hit at the very tip of the weapon. And if you hit at the very tip of the weapon, you're essentially doing power attacks, which works kind of in a similar way than the gloves did, which the gloves were basically, you would have to hit the enemy, and as you were about to hit the enemy, you would have to press the attack button again. So it requires a lot more effort there, and these fights can get pretty chaotic, so I'm not a big fan of those kinds of weapons. I just like getting in there and just completely wrecking the beasts. Now, these monsters, they all have individual body parts, right? And in order for you to get the best materials, in order for you to deal the most optimum amount of damage, you will want to target its individual body parts and cut them off. There's actually a whole mechanic surrounding that. You will want to cut off parts of the monsters, and then you will want to gather the materials from those parts. You will be pressing the R1 button, and it does this little aura thing around you, and that allows you to capture those parts for additional materials. Also, if you do not capture the parts, the game calls this cleansing. You're essentially cleansing these impure monsters' remains from the world to ensure that they don't cause any more damage. But there's a mechanic around in which if you do not cleanse each part that you sever from a monster, he can get it back. So that's another incentive for you to cleanse it. However, there is something that always disappointed me a little bit in Toukiden, and this comes from the original as well, which is even after you chop off parts of a monster, the monster just kind of gains them back in spectral form, because otherwise the monster would be unable to fight. Like, let's say I'm fighting a monster, I chop off his legs, what's it gonna do? Crawl at me? You know, the game doesn't really have a mechanic that supports that. So once you chop off a part, the monster is going to become stunned for a while, but then he grows like a spectral limb that allows him to continue in the fight. And that was always something that disappointed me a little bit because, you know, obviously I like the dismemberment mechanic, but you want, like, look, I chopped your wings off, you're not supposed to be able to fly anymore, for instance. And yes, the game does have flying monsters. Another mechanic that I feel sure on the Vita I can understand why they've implemented, and that mechanic is the loading of each area, right? I mean, all of these monster hunting like games, they all have different areas that you usually have to load into, just like Monster Hunter. So you have like zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and you go through the map and you go through all the zones, and each of the zones will have a little bit of a loading screen. And I'm like, okay, for the Vita, I can understand that, but I mean, if you're making a PlayStation 4 version, why wouldn't you just make it, you know, one whole world? And then I got to thinking, well, it's probably because Toukiden Kiwami is also available for the Vita, so they might want to do some cross-play stuff. I'm actually not sure if this game cross-plays with its Vita version, but it probably does, because another feature that I was very sad not to see was no 60 FPS, and I was like, oh, come on, man. I mean, the graphics are obviously not impressive, as you guys can see by this video. The graphics are not super impressive, so obviously the PS4 could do 60 FPS if they wanted to, but again, they just did a very basic port. Now, that's not, I mean, obviously that's a bit of a bad thing, but that's not to say that the game's no good, because in my opinion, I really enjoyed Toukiden, and I'm really happy with the fact that Toukiden came to the PlayStation 4, because it also gives people a chance to experiment in this genre. Because let's face it, I don't think that there is a Monster Hunter-like game on the PlayStation 4 right now that I can think of. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comment section if I'm wrong and tell me what game it is. But I don't think that there is a Monster Hunter-like game on the PlayStation 4. So Toukiden is actually in a really good position right now, because there's tons of people with PlayStation 4, and I'm pretty sure that there's tons of people on the PlayStation 4 ecosystem that enjoy Monster Hunter, or so I would assume. So yeah, Toukiden is in a really interesting spot. So what else is Kiwami bringing new, apart from new weapon types. It's actually bringing new weapons for all the types because it adds new chapters to the game. I'm not exactly sure when, which was the last chapter of the game, but all the Kiwami stuff starts at chapter 8, and I believe it goes all the way up to chapter 12 or 13 or something like that. So each chapter usually has a considerable amount of missions. Like if you look at chapter 5, which I'm in chapter 5 right now, I think there's over, is it 15 missions or something like that? I don't remember exactly, but there's a ton of missions there. And most of those missions you will be fighting interesting monsters and stuff like that. So just imagine, like, I don't know, 15 missions across another 4 chapters, and add the story elements on top of that. And they've also added this feature that I haven't seen in game yet. I've been looking at the wiki, guys, I have to be honest, because I just don't have as much time as I would like to dedicate to Toukiden to really, you know, delve into it and see all the new stuff. So I went to the wiki to figure out what else they added new, and they've added these random encounters that you can do now, which you can, like, fight waves of monsters one after each other to kind of like grind out materials and also challenge yourself, because the monsters become stronger and stronger with each wave. So I thought that was probably a pretty cool feature, but I don't think I'm far into the game enough to experiment that. On top of that, they've also added new Matamas. And like I said, I already told you guys what Matamas are, but you need to understand that each Matama also levels up as you are playing the game. So, and as they level up, each Matama has different abilities that they can have. So you want to get as many abilities that complement your playstyle as possible. So new Matamas will bring new possibilities for you to, you know, put together your build for your character and, you know, complement your playstyle. You can also do combinations of Matamas, which I haven't mentioned, which is your weapon will have a certain amount of slots that you can put Matamas into, and depending on the types of Matamas that you put in there, you can actually do specific combinations. Like, let's say you put 3 speed Matamas, you're probably going to get a bonus, or you put 3 Matamas from the same age, you'll also get a bonus. And then there's Matamas who just work well together, so they boost each other's skills. Now, beyond just the combat, because I've been focusing a lot on combat and fighting of monsters and optimizing your armor and stuff like that, there's also stuff that happens in the village. So there's this bath area that you can go to, and that will give you buffs from when you go into the game. There's an area that manages the leveling of Matamas. There is a house that you have in the village that you're in, which is basically where your character goes to rest and whatnot, and that is where your Tenku animal, the fox thing that I told you guys about that goes gather materials, that is where it is. There's this tree that you're supposed to visit and pay homage to every now and then, and you get random materials for doing that. There's a lot to this game, which is one of the reasons why I ended up doing this video in post commentary instead of live commentary, because it just allows me to tell you guys all these additional things since I don't really have to focus on gameplay. Now, if you're curious about, if you're even more curious about Toukiden, I already have a bunch of Toukiden videos on the channel, because I played the crap out of Toukiden, like I've mentioned, when it came out on the VITA, and I did a lot of coverage for Toukiden back then. So if you're curious, you can actually see me fight a lot of the monsters in the old version of Toukiden. But unfortunately, it's one of those series that never really took off on my channel, because there is a lot of repetition to the gameplay, because there's just a lot of repetition on these kinds of games. I mean, you're going to be killing monsters, and let's say you're going to be trying to get good with a weapon. I mean, each weapon will have their own, you know, good combo to take out a monster. So a lot of the times we'll be doing the same thing over and over again, particularly when in later stages of those videos, I just began specializing myself with a bow, because I was playing with a friend, and it was really good that we'd have someone that was kind of like in the back line firing the bow, and I was also just enjoying the crap out of the bow because it gave me different options for the playstyle that I was doing. Specifically, it allowed me to use the spell-based Matamas that I also had a lot of fun with, because you can cast these spells like there's projectiles coming out of the ground, you can make parts of their body explode and possibly even sever them. So there was a lot of cool stuff there. Also, each weapon will have a particular special ability. I mean, each weapon type will have a special which you charge as you go through the battle. It automatically just charges up. And when you do that special attack, you will usually be able to just flat out sever one of the monster's limbs with one of those shots. That was already present in the previous Toukiden, but the new one adds an additional mechanic on top of that, which is as you are fighting with your teammates, another bar, another gauge starts rising. And once that other gauge rises up, you can do a team attack, which you guys probably have already seen throughout the video, and that is just beast mode. It is a devastating attack that a couple of times that I've done it pretty much just chopped off every single limb that the monster that I was fighting had, and that is very satisfying. So there's a lot of new stuff in Toukiden, and more importantly, Toukiden is now on the PlayStation 4. In my opinion, I highly recommend this game if you like the gameplay footage that you're looking in the background. If you like, Monster Hunter style games, you are definitely going to enjoy this. As a matter of fact, I would almost say that this could be an entry for someone who thought that maybe Monster Hunter was too overwhelming, because the mechanics in this game are a lot simpler and it's a lot easier to get into. So if you seem like you enjoyed Monster Hunter, right, but you thought, oh man, this just goes way over my head, this game is a lot simpler, its mechanics are a lot simpler, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's dumbed down, because it's also a lot more fast-paced in a lot of aspects, because you will have to constantly be dodging out of the way of monsters, whereas Monster Hunter is a little bit more sluggish, depending on the weapon that you're using, naturally, but this one is a lot more faster-paced. You're going to be running all over the map. Certain weapons will allow you to do all kinds of crazy aerial combos. That is also a lot of fun. Like I've mentioned previously, the sickle was my first weapon. It was the weapon that I used the most at the start of the game. And the sickle actually allows you to basically climb up the animal. I believe that the daggers allow you to do that too. You can actually climb up to the demon that you're fighting, and you can just keep going up and attacking from above and keep going up if you do the combos properly, so long as you have stamina. Obviously, you still have a stamina gauge, and your more powerful attacks will consume stamina. When I first started playing Toukiden, like the previous version, I felt that the weapon variety was not all there, but these 3 new weapons definitely added a lot of variety to the game, and it's just great fun. Now, in terms of negatives, obviously, I mean, I've already mentioned it, but just to kind of sum things up here, because I've been saying a lot of positive stuff, and it almost seems like, oh my god, what are you doing, paid promotion here? No, not at all. I just really enjoy Toukiden, and nowadays I almost feel like you have to explain to people, like, I enjoy this game quite a bit, okay? I'm not being paid to make this video, I just happen to enjoy this game quite a bit. But in terms of its downsides, like I said, I feel that this game on the PlayStation 4 should be running at 60 FPS. There really is no reason why this game isn't running at 60 FPS. Like I said, maybe that reason is compatibility, but in my opinion, it should still run at 60 FPS. Okay, I'll give you the loading screens and the loading of areas, because I understand that the netcode of that could really mess things up if you're trying to do crossplay. But the 60 FPS shouldn't be a thing. And again, the loading is also kind of it's a bit of a downside in my opinion. The fact that you're loading these small ass areas on a PlayStation 4, I mean, come on now. We have Dark Souls 2 doesn't need to load almost anything, and it runs at 60 FPS, and the graphics in Dark Souls 2 are just leaps and bounds above this. So I think the PlayStation 4 can handle it just fine. I don't think there's going to be a problem there. Beyond the obviously the graphical downgrades that I've mentioned, I don't really see like any real downsides, because the gameplay is still solid. I still really enjoy the gameplay. So yeah, I mean, it's just a really fun game in my personal opinion. And again, like I mentioned, this game will be a lot more fun if you are playing it with friends. Playing it by yourself doesn't really do the game justice, because If you're going at it with a friend and you're like, oh man, here comes this attack, dude, you gotta dodge it now. I'm gonna do my special, and I'm gonna focus on the leg, you focus on the arm, to make sure that you get all that stuff. And the multiplayer bosses are also a lot more challenging than the single player bosses to compensate for that. However, you can also go do the multiplayer bosses solo, I think. Another really great feature, though, that I forget to mention is that you can actually import your save. So the character that you're watching me play is actually the same character that I played on my VITA. And that is a really good thing. Because, I mean, if you already invested in Toukiden from playing it on the VITA, you can just import your save in, no problems, and you have all of your weapons, all of your gold, all of your progress, all that stuff carries over flawlessly. So that's pretty good stuff. So, I mean, this is my impressions on Toukiden Kiwami. I think it's an awesome title. If you enjoy these kinds of games, obviously there are some how should I put it? There are the whole graphics thing. If you're really into graphics, you're going to be seeing basically VITA graphics at 1080p. But apart from that, I really enjoy the crap out of Toukiden Kiwami, and I highly recommend it. Anyways, this has been Rurikhan, as per usual. Leave me all the comments, feedback, all the kinds of good stuff in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.